And I want to clear the air because he's not like a physical abuser, like he's not an abuser, but it's mentally and emotionally 100%. Every day, 2,000 times a day. I can't even remember a conversation where it was like me walking away like feeling good about myself. It was always like, I've always looked out to be crazy, or I always looked out to be like, I don't know.
But the mental manipulation and emotional manipulation thing, like that still can kind of tear a person down.
I'm still dealing with stuff like to this day.
There are so many ignorant comments going around saying, she wasn't abused or manipulated. Bull. Alyssa's a sociopath. She enjoys making people feel bad for her. A lot of girls like to play the victim. Everyone is accusing Alissa of playing the victim, but she is the victim. You have to realize that emotional abuse is still abuse. It's just as bad, if not even worse. Licensed professional counselor Andrea Matthews explains that emotional abuse is an attempt to control, in just the same way that physical abuse is an attempt to control another person. The only difference is that the emotional abuser does not use physical hitting, kicking, pinching, grabbing, pushing, or other physical forms of harm. Rather, the perpetrator of emotional abuse uses emotion as his or her weapon of choice. Some examples include lying, socially isolating an individual, failing to let them have visitors, telling an individual they are too much trouble, being overfamiliar and disrespectful. And let me tell you, Jake did just that. He lied about loving her. He stopped her from having male friends over. He told her she couldn't go on a trip with Team 10 because she would get in the way of him trying to hook up with another girl there.
And then I was like, well, why can't I go? He was like, oh, well, there's this girl going and I really want to with her and I just don't want you to like get in the way of that or whatever. And I was like, I can't just go and like have fun and sit on the couch like everyone's leaving town. And then he's like, no, like you're not allowed to go.
He was overfamiliar when he would push her and spit on her, expecting her to be okay with it because they were best friends. He was disrespectful when he didn't tell her about some pranks because he wanted her genuine reaction. But more than anything, he manipulated her emotions.
But Alissa, if you're watching this, I still love you. I love you a lot.
This is not okay.
Alissa loves me.
I don't even know who you are, bro.
Jake did publicly state they were just friends.
Alissa and I are not dating. Everyone asks me that every single day. We're literally best friends. We've known each other for like so long now, and we grew up in Ohio together.
But that doesn't change the fact that Jake still messed with her emotions off camera.
Yeah, we flirt. I mean, it happens. Okay?
Alissa confessed Jake would tell her he loves her, then hooks up with other girls.
He told me he loved me one night, and then like a couple days later he flew out this girl from Ohio. They were like hooking up in Ohio, and he flew out this girl and was smashing her for like a week. That was like a few days after he told me he loved me. Are you serious? Like how could you do that to someone? How could you just like, I don't even know.
Sure, they didn't have a label, but at that point, does that matter? You can't just confess your love and become intimate with someone and not have a serious talk about it after. He wanted Alissa, but he didn't want commitment, and he couldn't tell her that.
And I was just so confused. I would confront him every day, being like, what are we? Like, I need to know, this hurts so bad. Like, he was always just brushing it off, being like, oh, I don't know what we are. Like, we'll figure it out, da-da-da. Like, I have to go to an audition, I have to go film. Like, we never really established what we were.
Which was toxic, because he expected her to put up with his one-way open relationship.
So excited for our date later.
No, it's not a date.
It's a date. It's a date. Don't lie.
Huh?
Don't lie. It's a date.
It's not a date.
It's a date. It's a good date.
It's still not a date.
Psychotherapist Amy Lewis says, tolerating hurtful treatment weakens self-esteem and self-confidence and perpetuates the cycle of emotional abuse. When you accept your partner's disrespectful treatment, you allow yourself to become responsible for his or her poor choices. You become a hostage to someone else's control. Your partner's abusive treatment towards you is not your fault, but you do contribute to the abuse when you don't stand up for yourself and go against your best judgment. So you can see, it was a tricky situation for Alissa because by not standing up for herself, she was implying that Jake's actions were okay.
Listen, if you allow an abuser an inch, they will take a mile.
I let that shit happen because I was just like so head over heels. Like I was just like, frick it, why not? Whatever makes him happy.
The more you submit to their abuse, the more they're going to abuse.
And then he would be with me, and then he would have a girl over, and then 2 days later he'd be with me, and then we'd be together, and then we'd not be together, and then we'd fight, and I'd be pissed because he'd bring girls over, and he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. And I was like, you can't just be with me one night and then like the next night treat me like shit and bring a girl over.
Because every abuser I've dealt with is in abject denial.
Honestly, I'm proud of Alissa for telling her side of the story. Being emotionally abused destroys your self-esteem. It can make you do things you regret just to build back your self-worth. Hopefully, this is a lesson to all of us, to not be afraid to stand up for ourselves or get help if we need it. Don't downplay emotional abuse. It's very real and very destructive. I'll admit, I'm disappointed in Jake, but I'll wait until Part 8 comes out before I make my final judgment. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
In some cases, the abuse has been physical, leading to domestic assault charges and imprisonment. In other cases, the abuse is more subversive, yet no less damaging. Emotional abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, role abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse. Sometimes I wish they would all just walk into my office with a black eye so that I could see the indisputable evidence and call the police. Instead, they tend to walk in with blackened and bruised hearts that bleed pain.
Also, if Alyssa's lying about all this, then here's some advice about self-awareness in a friends with benefits relationship.
You need to look at your situation and say, am I okay with this? Am I okay if they never change their mind with dating? Am I okay with that? If the answer is no, if you look at the worst case scenario and they're never gonna wanna date you, if you look at that worst case scenario and you're not okay with it, you need to end it right there. You end it right there, because if you continue putting yourself in that situation, that is on you. It is not on the other person.